just from the start, Rob, I looked back at the story from way back at 2008, and it seemed like you guys had turned the corner yourselves as a program, and Marinelli was speaking in that fashion and complimenting you. And yesterday, to come up to date, you talked about them being the best team over the last 10 years. But now 6 years have gone by, and you're the continuity to that program, and it looks like you could say, or other people around the league could say, that Darien over the last better part of 10 years, they're one of the top teams too. So now, does that help you going in?
In 2008, we ended up in this same game, 10-0, against a New Canaan team who had been good and been there, done that over the last 5, 6, probably decade. And here we were as Darien, the newcomer, because we hadn't been there in, you'd have to go back and look, Steve, but I want to say early 2000s.
Yes, yeah.
So, to our kids back in 2008, it was a little bit of a culture shock as to, all right, we're playing in front of 10,000 for what? For an FCIAC championship? Whereas for New Canaan, it was like, okay, business as usual.
Right.
So now you fast forward to, 2014, and I still maintain that they are the team to beat and the best team in the state, but we are no longer the new kid on the block. So I think just the entire mindset now is a little more at ease, if you will, and more on an even playing field. I've watched that 2008 game, and thought to myself, boy, even since then we've come a long way. I mean, we were good, but again, when you're the rookie, so to speak, there's some things that you do or do not do that, we've now evolved, into being a better program. So no fault, to any of those athletes who are wonderful athletes back in, 2008, ongoing. My point is, we have raised the program to the level, that we've tried to raise it to. And I'd like to think, at least program-wise, that we're, very close, to a New Canaan who, as I continue to say, out of 130 some-odd public schools, is the best, football program over the last decade.
And what about the continuity, Rob, as well? The biggest continuity is Trifone versus Marinelli. Now, what's the difference in between these two boxing matches from 08?
You know what? Again, he is the veteran coach in the state.
Mm-hmm.
The gentleman has over 300 wins. I mean, who has that? That said, he and I have very similar philosophies. We share philosophies with each other. We put the kids first. We know that it's a great game and it's all about the kids. And we also know that neither one of us is very smart, so we have to hire great assistants. and I say it all the time, you're only as good as your arms and your legs.
Right.
And those are my assistants and those are Lou's assistants. So I think, those are the parallels, between Lou and I.
With parallels as well, Rob, how about going back to 2010 when you guys did win the FCIAC?
Well, of course, in 2010, we ended up heading down to Trumbull for a very odd FCIAC championship at the home site of Trumbull. And, we were 2 touchdown underdogs back then. They had just come off a big win of, they upset Staples to get into that championship game. People said in that particular year that our schedule wasn't, as strong perhaps as it is this year, and they questioned, how good we were. But, once again, our defense played a huge role that night. I think this team is similar in that it's built, first on defense.
If you were to go back to 2008, you time traveled, you stepped into a machine, you've time traveled, what couple of guys do you think you'd like to have with you back in 08 from the team you have right now? What guys that you have under your wing right now would you like to have had in your trench back then?
Well, I think you just named the word. In the trenches, we're as good as we've ever been. And, if we could combine our current linemen with some of those linemen, back then, in the likes of, on offense, Jack Griffiths and Sam Botel, and Jack Tyrell, all tremendous linemen. And same thing on the defensive side of the ball. As you know, our defensive line is as good as it's ever been, between Ivanchik and Reed, and once again, Tyrell and Griffiths. These lines are better than '08. In all fairness, and those, young men would agree. But now you go back and forth. '08 had, 6'4" Kosnick at wide receiver, who ended up playing at Dartmouth, who was a wonderful player, and Nicky Desenchek, who also went to Dartmouth, played lacrosse, but Nicky was an all-around, all-purpose, type player. And of course you had Matt Wheelock, the quarterback, but now you got Timmy Graham. I think it's apples, to apples almost. Both great, quarterbacks. And so, those are certainly some of the names, that pop into mind. Our middle linebacker was, what is his name? Escaped me. Went to Gettysburg and played. James Patton.
Oh, James Patton, yeah.
He was a good player, But again, now you have Charlie, Travers, in the middle along with Pete Archie. And so it'd be nice to put together an all-Madden all-star team, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. You could throw in Calandro's haircut for luck, too, or for color, anyway.
You forget Calandro, The difference between, again, 08 and 14 is certainly the line, because Calandro was the anchor, back then, and on both sides of the ball. And, Rocco was surrounded by role players that were 210 pounds. Now you take, the biggest lineman we've got, both ways is Jack Griffiths at 290, and he's flanked with guys that are 250 and 260 and 240.
Right.
So that's where the comparison separates itself.
That's where it's going to happen. If you're going to get by New Canaan with La Police and all the rest of it, are you going to do it with this line?
Well, you know what, Steve? That's why we play the game. You've got two teams with teenagers that are going to show up on Thanksgiving Day, and who knows what you're going to get out of, 17 and 18-year-olds. In the NFL, they don't even know what they're going to get. So, the bottom line is this. The team that shows up and plays their A game on Thanksgiving is going to be the team that wins. Obviously, Lou is trying to control that on his end, and Trifone is trying to control that on my end. And at some point, after 10:30 a.m. on Thursday, you lose some of that control. And all I mean by that is now it's in the hands of the teenagers.
Right.
Yes, we can call the play, and, we've planned for 10 days, but at some point, the responsibility jumps to them, and, can they make the big play? And Lou certainly hopes his boys do, and I hope that my, boys come through.
And if they come through, Rob, what will have happened? What will have happened besides the kids being able to settle into more of a focused sort of grown-up role for more moments than New Canaan will be able to?
Right. Well, I think, if everyone plays like they're supposed to, again, talking about Darien, and you're able to come out, on top Thanksgiving, I think, once again, it's a statement game, and now, you've literally turned the corner, to at least be an equal, to that program.